Don Faul endorsed the PFAA. Let's get into it. Hey, before we get started, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell. That way you don't miss anything coming out here on the channel. So over the past few days, I'm sure many of you have seen that the PFAA, or the Professional Fitness Athletes Association, sent a list of demands to CrossFit designed to improve the professionalism of the sport. And they specifically asked for the removal of Dave Castro as director of sport of the CrossFit Games. And so the question I've been getting most over those past few days is, who is the PFAA? What gives them the right to make demands of CrossFit? And specifically, what gives them the right to ask for Dave Castro's removal? So I thought we would address that directly, as well as hear some words directly from Don Faul, the CEO of CrossFit, and his support of the PFAA, and hopefully tie those together so everyone can really understand what the objectives on both sides of this are. So let's first start with the PFAA and who they are and their role in the space. Most of us within the CrossFit community haven't been really invested in the PFAA or don't understand what their objectives are, and that's understandable. The PFAA is essentially an association designed to help raise professionalism in the sport of CrossFit, both to help athletes and the sport side itself. There's really no reason why any of us would be invested in that, because that's the real kind of behind the scenes minutia that you see in sports. Like, as an example, I follow the NFL. I begrudgingly have rooted for the Cleveland Browns for some time, and I end every season crying about it. But I get really invested in the players and the games and the teams we play against, and get really excited on Sundays when those games come out. I spend no time worried about athletes unions or agents or any of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes with athletes, because it's not fun. And I think the PFAA is no different for us within CrossFit. Is like, we like the spectacle of CrossFit. We like to watch people do what we do in the affiliates. We don't really care how they got there. So I think that's why a lot of people have not heard of the PFAA, and why there's been such a aggressive reaction to this list of demands they've given, because it does feel a little bit like it came out of left field, when in reality it didn't. So the PFAA itself was designed to professionalize the sport and help the athletes simply earn a living doing CrossFit. I think we all understand the finances of CrossFit, that this is not a sport in its fledgling state that pays a lot of money. And in order to earn a living doing it full time, you really have to compete at the absolute highest levels of the sport in order to do that. And there are only so many competitions to go around and only so many payouts. And so over the course of the last few years, we've seen a lot of notable top tier athletes continuing to work second jobs, or really primary jobs, with CrossFit being supplementary income to them as they continue to try to professionalize the sport and raise it up to a level where everyone can earn money. So that's why the PFAA came into existence. Now that you know why they've come into existence, let's talk about the people that sit on the board and why they're important, because it's really kind of broken into three groups. And these are really highly influential people within the CrossFit space, both athletes, coaches, affiliate owners, all CrossFitters, one and all. So let's start first with the board to have an understanding of who they are. First, you've got multiple podium winners and even some games champions on this list. You've got Brent Fikowski, who everyone knows has been on the podium multiple times. He actually started the PFAA. Annie Thorsdottir, who's a multiple time winner. Dina Swift, Laverne Engelbrecht, Fee Sagavi, who incidentally was my coach for a short while at CrossFit Mentality. I absolutely love Fee, and I absolutely hate Fee for pointing out every single flaw I've ever had within CrossFit. You've got Uncle Pat Vellner, who is beloved within the sport and is one of the ones that I mentioned earlier that has kind of famously worked other jobs as he's continued to compete within CrossFit. Royce Dunn and Victoria Campos, both really terrific, talented CrossFitters. And then on the advisory council, you've got Carolyn LeBray, who's an L4 coach and an affiliate owner at CrossFit Wonderland. John Christian Singleton, who's the founder of the program and owner of Box Majorca. Justin Kotler, who is arguably the prettiest man on this list because he looks just like me, and is the founder of Underdog Athletics. He kind of famously coaches Ricky Garrard. Max L. Haig, who's the founder of Training Think Tank, and then Joshua Hicks, who's an event emergency organizer who helps with the safety side of CrossFit. And then on the executive team, you've got Mitchell Bragg, who's the chief growth officer, and Grace Paulus, who's the chief operating officer. CrossFitters one and all, and really passionate about the sport and passionate about helping athletes. As they built this association, they've spent time trying to partner with CrossFit and build a dialogue to help athletes and help the sport itself. And if you have followed the sport at all, there's been quite a bit of contentious moments along the way. And Don Faul has actually addressed that and spoken to it a couple of times. I'm going to show some video clips here of Don, but I want to set up the context so you understand what we're looking at. The first video clip we're going to watch is Don Faul off of my other podcast, Kettlebells and Cocktails, that I share with Nikki Brazier, who's a sideline reporter for the CrossFit Games. We were having a conversation with Don back in February, and in that discussion, we got on the topic of culture. And so Don spent some time with us telling us about the culture he's trying to build within CrossFit. Let's listen to Don's own words now.
I want us, we're working toward building a culture where like, look, we're going to debate the heck out of stuff. We may fundamentally disagree on it, but once we make the call, we're going to show up as one team and we're going to support it. Doesn't matter how you feel about it on the most controversial issues. And I think our team, we're getting it. We're seeing the moments where you should hear the same thing from every member of our team as we're rolling stuff out.
So I love this message from Don when we had the chance to chat with him about it. I think this is, I don't want to call it a typical message, but I do think it is something that CEOs often focus on, which is breaking down silos within a business, getting people to debate whatever the topic may be. And then once you have that vigorous debate, then locking arms, moving forward in a positive manner with everyone supporting the others. I think that's a very, very critical piece of the business to help it be successful. Now, the question you're probably asking is, how does that apply to the PFAA? I'm going to show you that in context in a speech that Don gave directly to the PFAA back at the 2023 CrossFit Games. The first piece I'm going to show here is Don giving a very similar statement to the athletes and the coaches that he gave to Nikki and I on our podcast.
That doesn't mean we all agree on everything. You're going to disagree on some stuff, but we need to be able to sit down and come together and think about this as a partnership. And our job at HQ is to lead from the front. One, we've got to do the job of communicating where we're going, informed by discussions with you guys, with affiliate owners, coaches, partners.
Here's why this is interesting to me. This was recorded during the 2023 CrossFit Games, which would have been in August. He spoke to Nikki and I in February. CEOs don't do anything by chance. They have direction that they give. They have ideas of the direction they want the company to go, and they move them very quickly. And so I believe this to be evidence that Don had already worked out this strategy of collaboration and discussion and moving together as one team as far back as August of 2023, and it very clearly was still on his mind when he talked to us in February. So I think you can make a very solid argument that Don had set this agenda for his team, and they had been working on it for 6 to 8 months at this point. And now we're obviously much farther along. So this has been a process for them for a year now, that they want a collaborative approach with others in a team-based environment. What that does for me is it opens up a question, is if they've been focused on this for a full year now, why are we still finding moments where there seems to be this contentious relationship between the PFAA and CrossFit? Well, logic would tell you that it's because he's only talking about his team and he doesn't truly support the PFAA and their work until you watch the rest of the video. So let's watch another clip from Don from the exact same speech where he essentially endorses the PFAA.
I think we have tried in the past to engage with you guys, and we've tried through a variety of different touch points. As I think about you guys, the fact that this exists is essential for the community, essential for the sport. And if we do our jobs well, it shouldn't be a contentious thing. It should not require strikes. We get there, we have massive events. But the athlete, we need you guys as you're doing to organize and come to us with one voice. If we are in a position of having to try to litigate to lots of different opinions, perspectives throughout the community, I think we do everybody into service. So the fact that this exists is an amazing thing for the sport. And it's the fact that we actually spend the time gives us the opportunity to sit down with you guys in a month and say, great, what is the athlete point of view? What's the athlete perspective? What is the athlete opinion? We can sit down with that from H2 and we can work together on what that future looks like.
So this is an amazing clip for a number of reasons. So first of all, he called the PFA essential to the sport and essential to the community. From my point of view, that's absolutely an executive endorsement of what they're doing. The second thing he did, I thought that was incredibly telling, is he first said it would be a massive failure if they ever got to the point of a strike. And then he asked them to collectively organize to come to him in one voice. You can essentially wrap that up as a CEO asking them to become a union and recognizing that CrossFit's fear is that they could collectively come together and strike if they wanted to. That is powerful, powerful stuff. And I think you can't lose sight of the fact that the executive endorsement of Don saying, we find you guys to be valuable and we want to work with you, indicates that if you tie this back to his message of, I want my team to be collaborative and work well together. And now he's telling the PFA, we want to be collaborative with you and work well together. The question begs, why aren't they? Well, the PFAA has been very clear that they don't feel they have that type of relationship with Dave, and that's why they're demanding he step down. So for everyone asking the question, how does the PFAA have the power to ask Dave to move into a different role or to step out of the role? It's because Don Faul empowered them at the CrossFit Games in 2023 to collectively organize and to do so. The bigger question for me is this. If Don and his team truly believe that collaboration and working well together and locking arms on a decision, even if it's an unpopular decision, is important, why is that not happening currently? There are really only one or two answers I can come to. I'm happy to hear what your answers are if you want to drop them in the comments. But for me, the two I can come to are this. Either Don's giving lip service to the community and telling the PFA what he thinks they want to hear and not really engaged to deliver on it, or Dave's not delivering on it and Don's not holding him accountable to it. I guess we'll find out in coming weeks what happens next.